Hello everyone, Suparna. Welcome back to my channel Suparna's Speech Therapy Clinic. So, the topic of discussion for today is autism. So, autism is basically a very familiar term to most of the people. You might have watched videos on autism, or you might have read various articles on autism. So, autism is not the term that is clinically used. The term which is used for autism is autism spectrum disorder. That is, it is basically an umbrella term, which means that is there are a lot of disorders which comes under that particular term. So, under autism spectrum disorder, we have the autistic disorder or the autism, and second one is we have the Asperger syndrome or Asperger disorder. Third one is we have childhood disintegrative disorder CDD, and fourth one is PDD-NOS, that is pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified. So, basically this autism spectrum disorder was earlier known as pervasive developmental disorder. So, in the recent revision of the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, that is which classifies the various communication disorders, they have put forward the the term autism spectrum disorder rather than the other term, the pervasive developmental disorder. So, under the PDD or the pervasive developmental disorder, we had 5 classifications which included the Rett syndrome also. But under this autism spectrum disorder, which is a new term given by the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, they have taken out the Rett syndrome, which comes under this autism spectrum disorder. But we can clinically we can see many cases which comes with the typical Rett syndrome features. So, we can't say that it is like we have to like diagnose it as Rett syndrome rather than like diagnosing it as autism spectrum disorder. So, if like any of these cases, like if it is an Asperger syndrome, if it is an autistic disorder, if it is a CDD, if it is PDD-NOS, the basic term we give or the diagnostic label we give is autism spectrum disorder. So, there are autism is basically considered as a neurodevelopmental disorder. There are various causes that can lead to autism, but the exact cause that leads to autism is still unknown. There are various theories that say that autism is caused due to genetic influence, autism is due to hormonal imbalance, autism is due to brain damage. So, nothing like specific, no cause has been specifically said to be the cause for autism spectrum disorder. So, the autism spectrum disorder, the core features or the triad features, the 3 basic triad features, the basic features we see in autism spectrum disorder is lack of social interaction, lack of communication, and stereotypic behaviors. So, lack of social interaction means the child does not have an interest in socially interacting with people. Second one is lack of communication. The child does not have any interest in communication. Basically, he will be in his own preoccupied in his own world, or he will be preoccupied with his own activities. And third one is stereotypic behaviors, that is some kind of repetitive behaviors. So, these are the core triad features of autism spectrum disorders. Apart from these features, we will find some other characteristic features also in autism. So, some of them are like we can find lack of like parent child attachment. Child may not be understanding that this particular lady is my mother or this particular man is my father. The child will be interacting as if it is a caregiver or the person who spends most of the time with the child. So, second one is Awaken Stare, that we can see the child, we can observe when we see the child, we can observe him looking at a particular thing or like into a vacant space for a longer time. And we can see like the child will be looking through the corners of the eyes rather than looking, particularly the eye contact will be very less, attention will be very less, but we can see attention for his interested activities, but not for our activities. And we can see like child will be having some kind of child will be having good imitation for activities, but very bad imitation or very poor imitation for verbal responses, so verbal activities. Then basically we can see like they have some sort of along with this communicative deficits or the communicative difficulties, we can see some kind of sensory issues in the child. Sensory issues can be either hypersensitivity or hyposensitivity. That is, either the sensory issues will be, or the senses will be hyper functioning or functioning a little bit more, or the senses will be functioning a little bit less. That is, we can see some of the sensory features, that is sensory issues that you see in children are, they may be sensitive to auditory stimulus. That is, when they hear some sounds, you might find them closing their eyes or running to another room in order to escape from this, or in order to get rid of this particular stimulus. And we can find them having issues with hair cutting, nail cutting, all those problems, feeding issues, toileting issues, and they will exhibit some type of behavioral issues like hyperactivity, then attention deficit problem. All those problems we can see in these kind of children. Along with this, we can see some like the basic, some of one of the important feature that we see in them is like they will be having insistence on sameness. That is, they cannot move from their routine, or if we change anything in their normal routine, they will find it very difficult to adapt to that change. And the second thing that second most important thing that you can find in them is like they have affinity towards spinning objects. Anything, whichever what is spinning, either it can be a fan, it can be like a wheel or a tire or something. And next is that you can find them lining up things. Whatever they get, what they do is they line up those things in a particular fashion. That is another feature that we see in autism. So, these are the characteristic features in general that we see in autism, and the various characteristic features change according to this categories. Like in autism it is different, in Asperger it is little different, in PDD and NOS it is different, in CDD it is a little bit of different features you can find, and in Rett syndrome also it is like gender differences will be there, feature differences will be there in these kind of, in all the categories. So, those details I will be dealing in I will be discussing in the coming video. In the coming videos you can see the disorders or the categories in detail, and how you can assess, how we assess it, and how the management is taken, or how the intervention comes into consideration. So, if you have any doubts, you can mention in the comment box. Anything personal, you can either post in my Facebook Suparna Speech Therapy Clinic page, or I will be posting my email ID in the link or in the description box. So, please like, share and subscribe my channel Suparna's Speech Therapy Clinic. Thank you.